Hello my loves, how are we? Welcome back to the channel. Today is a very cute, cozy day. We've had the first snowfall of the year, so we're feeling very cozy. We've got the lamps on, I've got a hot water bottle, I've brewed myself a cup of chamomile tea. Oh yeah, and should we do a bump check? Now 24 weeks pregnant with our first baby. Bump check. There she is, she's doing good. I'm just in my jammies because I'm in my jammies, okay? It's snow day, it's a nice cozy snow day. Okay, the only thing we don't have going is a candle, but I think that the two lamps are cozy enough. So anyway, today I want to tell you the story of my now fiance and I's engagement, because I feel like it's quite a funny story, really, compared to like most engagement stories, which are like very sweet and very cute. Like I feel like ours is like very dramatic and funny, and it's not actually that dramatic, but anyway, I want to share it with you today, just for funsies. So let's get into it. So I'm gonna start off by rewinding us. So the year is 2024, our Lord's 2024 right now, but we want to rewind back to 2019, which is when me and Lewis first met and we first got together. And we had a pretty crazy time when we first got together because we weren't together for very long before he actually moved to Canada permanently, and I was supposed to move out to Canada with him. We're from the UK, we met in Sheffield, England. So I was supposed to move from Sheffield to Canada in April 2020 to go out there and be with him. So I'm sure you can all figure out from the year what happened to that plan. Did not happen. We had COVID and I got stuck. And so I ended up living with his parents and he broke his back. The start of our relationship was very turbulent. There was a lot going on. But yeah, he broke his back skiing, doing a backflip. He accidentally did a backflip and a half and landed really poorly on like a very icy piece of snow and shattered his T6, I believe it was. No, sorry, didn't shatter. That's dramatic. Hyperbole. Had a compression fracture. Still not good. So he ended up coming home, and so we got most of COVID together, which was really nice, although he was very broken. And we built a van together. We built a van with the idea that that would allow us to move around during COVID and still travel, with the plan of going to France. So that's like a little bit of the backstory of where we've come from. So if we now skip to January 2022, we've been together for two and a half years. We're out on this amazing trip in Scotland in our van, and it's been snowing and it's just been gorgeous, and it's the most perfect day I've spent together with our dogs in the van, in the snow. Everything's amazing and wonderful, and I'm in bed and I'm reading a book. And Lewis decides, this is about 9:30, 10 o'clock, it's dark, he decides that he is going to go take the dogs for a snowy walk at night just to take in all of the vibes. So off he goes for this little walk, and he comes back about 20 minutes later and he says, "Kirsty, you have to come with me. I need to show you something." And I'm like, I'm in bed, boy, I'm in bed. I'm not getting out of this bed. See how cozy I am in this bed. No. But he like fights with me for a bit and he's like, "No, honestly, it's gonna be worth it. You need to come, get dressed. Come on, I need to come and show you something." So I'm like, "Oh, fine." Get dressed, bundled up in like blankets and stuff, and I go and follow him out to see what it is that he's. Okay, the camera just died, so we're off to a good start. So we're walking off into the woods, and in these woods next to the van, there's just all of a sudden this clearing and this huge neon art installment. Bearing in mind, we're out in the arse end of nowhere in the Highlands of Scotland. There is no reason for this art installment to be there, and it says that everything is going to be okay, and it's all in multicolored letters and it's gorgeous. And Lewis takes my hand, gets down on one knee, and and says, sorry, I just need to tie my shoe. Sorry, I just need to tie my shoe. So I start crying immediately, howling, because I genuinely thought he was about to propose, and it was so perfect. It was such a beautiful day, such a beautiful setting, this random sign, like everything was just so perfect for it. And it was a joke that he got from the US office, because apparently Jim does a fake proposal to Pam at some point. I can't remember that episode, but he swears that that's a thing. So I'm like inconsolably howling for a good hour. I would say a good hour, because I just can't believe it, and it would have been so perfect and lovely, and it was not to be. So the reason that I bring this up in our actual proposal story is because of what Lewis says next. So when he's trying to console me and apologize for misreading the vibes, he says that he wouldn't do a fake proposal unless the real proposal was just around the corner. Now, I don't remember the exact words that he used to phrase that. It's been contested many a time, but he said to the effect that the only reason he's doing a fake proposal is because I should be expecting the real proposal soon. So this was in 2022. This was in January 2022. So listen, I don't know what your opinion on the word soon is. I don't know how you would define it, but for me, I would define soon in terms of like a proposal, which is a big thing. For me, that's like the next 6 months. Are you guys all kind of feeling the same sort of thing? Like you're thinking probably like a couple of months, 6 months max, kind of that's soon, right? Okay, so Lewis's idea of soon was within the next 5 years. That was his idea of soon. So when he told me the real proposal was coming soon, very different definitions, very different idea of what our next year was going to look like. So basically for the next 6 months, I was totally on eggshells all the time because I thought he was going to propose any second now. So I would get all excited and, you know, you would big up these situations in your mind because you're like, oh my god, he's gonna do it. Like we would go for a romantic meal and I would be like, oh my god, he's gonna do it. And it's like, no, he's not. Like he's Anyway, so it was a bit of a turbulent time. And so when we'd passed a year mark of the fake proposal, I had a conversation with him being like, hey, so these were my expectations. And then he shared his expectations. And then that was when we realized they did not align. And I was like, oh, okay, right. Okay, got it. So I was then pretty upset because we'd been together for, I don't know, three and a half, coming on 4 years by that point, and I was ready to get engaged to him. I knew that I wanted to be married to him. So we had a couple of dicey times where I was just getting impatient with him and he was getting impatient with me, and it didn't make for like the nicest time ever. So if anybody's watching this and thinking that sounds so funny, I would love to fake propose to my girlfriend and then, you know, not propose for a long time afterwards, I wouldn't recommend it. I wouldn't recommend it because having two different expectations of timeline is not exactly a great idea. So anyway. So then we started talking about the Canada trip that we've just been on. So if anybody missed it, we went for a 6-week trip to Canada. It was like a once in a lifetime, what's the word? Like, is it retribution? Is that the right word? Because we never made it to Canada together as a couple because of COVID and Lewis is back and there was lots of other issues and things, but that's stories for a different day. So we never made it to Canada together. So we'd planned this Canada trip as like our doing it, like us making it out there and being out there together finally after all this time, when this was one of the original plans that our relationship had ever come up with. And I started to get the idea that he was definitely going to propose in Canada, because he kept, anytime I would ask him, like, you know, what's your thoughts on the proposal? Like, or is it something that's going to be happening soon? He would always say that he wanted to do it at a big, meaningful point in our life, like a big turning point or like a big opening of a new chapter or something like that. And that's what we'd been referring to Canada as this massive new, well, end of a chapter, and then us coming back from Canada would be like the start of a new chapter for us. So I was pretty sure that he was going to do it in Canada. So the whole time that we were planning the Canada trip, I was like, we're planning our proposal trip. This is finally happening. It's finally happening. It's so good. And I was so excited. And so then I was asking him, because, okay, in case you couldn't tell by like my version of this story, I like to know when things are happening. I do not like surprises. I'm just not a fan of surprises. I want to know when it's happening, what's happening, who's happening with, and how much it's going to cost. Like, I want to know all the things. I'm the person that opens their Christmas presents early, like sneaks into the living room and unwraps their presents and then rewraps them so that I know what I've got. Like, I'm that kind of person, which I know is a very annoying type of person, but I can't help it. When we were getting closer to our departure date for Canada, I was kind of asking him, like, if you were going to propose, would you do it more at the start of the trip, or would you do it more at the end of the trip? Or like, what's your thought? Like, you know, when should I expect it? Because like, ultimately I was trying to not set myself up for failure, for being disappointed, because I didn't want to be disappointed on this trip. I wanted to really enjoy this trip. So I wanted to know, okay, if you're planning to do it on our last night, can I know that, so that I don't spend the entire 6 weeks freaking out every single day wondering if you're gonna do it, kind of thing. So he told me that he was gonna do it in the first half of the trip, and I was like, perfect, okay, that's great, thank you, that's all I need to know, that's fine, satiated. So the first half of our trip was a canoe trip. We did 2 weeks of canoeing around the Byron Lakes Provincial Park. It's like a circuit of interconnected lakes and rivers, which is 110-ish kilometers long, so it takes like a really long time. So I was like, great, he's gonna do it on the canoe trip. We're all set, we're all settled. But then when we were getting closer to actually leaving for Canada and then going on the canoe trip, then I was like, but what day on the canoe trip? Like, what week of the canoe trip are you gonna do it? And so that was just me being stupid and just needing much more information than I actually needed and just getting excited about it. And so he ended up being quite firm with me and saying, Kirsty, listen, I'm going to do it when I'm going to do it, but it's going to be on this canoe trip, okay? And he did also say it will be the second half of the canoe trip. So I figured out that there was this one place, when you look at the map of the park, there's this one location that looks like it would be a stunner place to propose. It's this tiny little lake that's hidden away from all the other lakes, and there's only a couple of campsites on it, so it's very private. And when you read the description of it, it says that it's like crystal clear waters. It's the best wild swimming spot on the whole park, and we're massive wild swimmers, so that was like a big thing. And then it also had this hike to a waterfall. There were only 2 hikes in the whole entire 110 kilometer circuit, and this tiny little lake called Una Lake had this hike to a waterfall. And so looking at the map, I was like, that seems like the place that he would do it. And that did end up being the place that he did it. So when we got to Una Lake, Okay, I've just had a bit of a switch around because the camera ran out of memory, and it's now really dark, so hopefully the lighting hasn't changed too much. But anyway, so we're at Anna Lake. We're almost there. So when we get to Anna Lake, it is absolutely pissing it down with rain. It's literally like one of the worst weather days that we've had. We've just come off of like beautiful sunshine, like on the beach getting a tan, and then get to Anna Lake and it is so windy and so rainy. It's like a storm. So we're setting up camp and we're trying to figure out what we're doing. Lewis decides that he's gonna go out fishing even though it's raining. He's gonna go out fishing and see if he can catch us a fish for dinner. And I stay on shore and get started with cooking said dinner. And when Lewis is out on the lake fishing, the weather just suddenly clears and it just becomes still and beautiful and really bright. Like all the clouds just blow away and there's this absolutely gorgeous sunset. We'd both decided that we weren't going to go to the waterfall because it was raining and it was miserable, and we were like, we'll just see what it's like tomorrow, and maybe we'll try and go tomorrow if we can, if we have time. And when I'm on the shore looking out and Lewis is on the boat looking in, both of us individually are like, nah, let's go to the falls. Like, we should go to the waterfall tonight. We should have a quick dinner and then go to the falls. So when Lewis comes back onto shore, we both kind of like excitedly tell each other, we should go, let's just go. And so we do. And we paddle across the lake by this absolutely glorious sunset. And we hike, it's about 1.5 kilometers. It's not a long hike. Through the woods to, it's called Caribou Falls, these 24-meter waterfalls, and we're like scrambling about like looking for a nice spot and like this whole time I'm fully aware that Lewis is about to propose, like fully, completely, 100% aware. So we try to find a spot down by the waterfall which would be nice for it. Obviously I'm letting Lewis lead, I'm just going along and pretending I don't know anything about it. And I know that he's brought the camera because I know he wants to try and film it. And there was just nowhere good. Like, that waterfall was so dangerous because it's so high and it's so remote. Like, the sides of it are super steep. These massive big rocks that you have to scramble down to try and get down close to the falls. So it was actually really quite sketchy. And so in my mind, I was like, there is no way we're getting a video of this. Like, it's not gonna happen. This is way too sketchy. And I think Lewis is still really trying to do that. Yeah, so Lewis is trying to find somewhere that would be safe to do it, and there's just nowhere that would be safe to set it up. So he ends up going into his pocket and getting out the ring and like trying to get down on one knee, but he's trying to do this without me realizing that he's doing it. And I'm so aware of the fact that he's trying to do a proposal on the most uneven, rocky, sketchy surface, like wet rocks, sketchy surface. So I just like turn around and just don't look at him and just give him a minute. And I'm just like standing looking at the waterfall being like, ah yes, this is fine, everything is normal. And then he manages to actually get down on one knee successfully without falling, and like calls me to turn around, and he proposes, and it's beautiful and wonderful. And he said some lovely, it was really important to me that he like said some lovely things, and he really came through, and he really said some really beautiful, lovely words, and just made it completely perfect, and asked me to marry him. And I of course said yes. I have my ring, but I didn't have my ring in the last video because it was getting resized. It's actually still a bit too big, unfortunately, but I do have my ring. But the story is not over yet, because this ring is not actually the ring that he proposed to me with. So he's doing this gorgeous proposal and I say yes, and we're crying and we're hugging, and it's beautiful and wonderful and perfect. And then he turns to me and he's like, okay, you actually have a choice of ring. I actually have 2 rings. It's like, what on earth? So it turns out that the summer before, or like, we're confused about the timeline on this, but it was like 6 months to a year before he actually proposed, his mum came down to our house with 2 of his granny's rings and gave them to him if he wanted to use them, if he was going to propose to me. And so he had gotten both of these rings and he loved both of them. He thought that they were both lovely, and he couldn't for the life of him, because he's not a jewelry boy, like, boy is really not a jewelry boy, so he like could not figure out which ring he wanted to use to propose. So him being him, literally brought both of the rings to Canada backpacking with us, which is so sketchy and so dangerous, and I really wouldn't recommend anybody do that. Like, it's dangerous enough bringing 1 engagement ring, let alone 2 engagement rings, family heirloom engagement rings. So he has these 2 rings in his wallet the whole time that we're backpacking through Canada and like out on this wilderness canoe trip and everything. He tells me afterwards that on the walk to the waterfall, he had both of them in his pocket and he was flipping them around in his hand, still trying to decide which one to use when we actually were going to do the proposal. And so the reason that he couldn't decide is because he couldn't figure out which one was more of an engagement ring. And the reason that he picked the one that he did is because he'd asked me a couple of months ago, he'd asked like, what is it that makes an engagement ring and not a wedding ring? And I'd said to him, usually engagement rings are shinier, but I hadn't specified. What I meant was like, usually engagement rings have rocks in them, like have stones in them. And not just that they are inherently shinier, like they usually have stones and usually wedding rings don't have stones, but I just said like, oh, usually an engagement ring is shinier. So one of the rings had more stones in it than the other, and so he had ultimately based his decision on me being like, it's shinier, and he's like, the one with more stones is shinier, so that's a more appropriate engagement ring. So that's the one that he used to propose. But he did give me the option afterwards of the 2 different rings, and it had actually turned out that he preferred the other ring, and he didn't tell me that until afterwards, after I'd said I think I prefer the other ring, and he was like, that's the one that I had preferred all along. He just got thrown off by the shiny comment. So it was really lovely, and it felt like it was meant to be. Wait, hang on, let me double check. You can see it. So that's the ring, and the ring is actually his Canadian granny's, so it kind of was really perfect that he did it in Canada, and Canada was such a meaningful place for us already, and now it is even more so because the ring is from there and that's where he did it, and yeah, everything just felt really special and right. But yeah, so that is the extremely long story of how Lewis and I became engaged. Came to be engaged. So it was 2.5 years from the fake proposal to the real proposal. 2.5 years. I'll never forgive him for it. I never will. That's too long. That's not soon. That is, I do not accept anyone's definition of soon being 2.5 years. No, wrong. We're there now. And I'm very, 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 very grateful to be engaged to such a wonderful man and my best friend, really. So yeah. Cute! Alright, that's enough. That is enough. So before I end this video, I have a really fun announcement that I've never done before, but we're doing a birthday shout out for one of my subscribers. So one of my subscribers, his name is Simon, and he turned 33 at the weekend. So happy birthday, Simon. I hope that you had a fantastic day, and thank you to your lovely girlfriend. I think it's your girlfriend, isn't it? Thank you so much. Yes. yes, your lovely girlfriend for reaching out and asking if I would be willing to do a birthday shout out, which of course is very exciting. Love a good birthday. Love to be 33. That's a good age, good strong age. Congratulations, Simon. So everybody wish Simon a wonderful birthday. And I will see you guys next week. I love you so much. Bye.